All right, what's going on, folks? My name is Dequarius Beverly, and thank you for tuning into my video. We're just gonna freestyle it today because the fact is, man, I've been getting a lot of inboxes and people hitting me up about this video that I actually did a couple months ago talking about my experience with working at GameStop. And one of the biggest questions that I've been getting is about how to be able to interview well and being able to impress your employer with being able to get the job that you're looking for. And this is video is particularly talking about GameStop, but this actually could be applied to any job. For someone like myself who worked a lot of jobs, more than I'm afraid to admit, and ultimately most of the jobs that I have applied at, usually 9 times out of 10, I usually end up getting the position or impressing my employer or opportunists that I'm talking to consider me as a candidate because of the things that I ultimately are projecting and ultimately saying. And a lot of it is really just a psychology, and what I'm ultimately going to teach you in this video to pretty much help you gain confidence and be able to impress your employer, to be able to consider you as a potential candidate to be on the team. And that's really ultimately most important, is your mindset and attitude, and ultimately thinking about how are you going to be able to solve problems for the company that you're actually applying for? Because a place, especially like in a sense like GameStop, you ultimately want to be there to provide a service such as like customer service, providing an environment where it creates less stress for your employer, because that's ultimately a lot of times what they're thinking about. Someone like myself who has also hired people in my businesses and things like that, these are the very same things that I'm always thinking about and asking about, is could they be able to solve the problem that I'm looking for? And so that's exactly the same thing that your employer is going to be thinking about as well when you're actually applying for the position. So 9 times out of 10, you particularly are going to get questions like, so tell me about yourself. So of course they're asking this question because they're simply sizing you up to see exactly how your personality fits with the culture of that company or that organization that you're applying to. Because 9 times out of 10, you're going to be spending a lot of time with the people that you're working with. So they're looking to see how your personality type is, and ultimately what is it that you bring to the table that can bring a fun or just a culture that actually mix with what they're trying to have in their environment, working environment. So 9 times out of 10, if you're applying at a position, always talk about your interests that are invested in the company. Like, how much time you shop there. Like at GameStop, I love this job. I love this company. I always shop here. I'm always playing video games. I know a lot about my product. And this can be anything. In terms of just where you're applying to. Have you took the time to do your research to actually show that you have an invested interest in the actual company? Because they like to see that, because therefore it gives them an incentive to say, okay, if this person's already invested interest into the product or in the company, then it's less training that I have to actually put into the person and actually getting them to really get on board and actually learn the business. Now, obviously there's always training in every entity, but if you already have an invested interest in the company, then they're already going to look at you as someone, okay, this is someone that's excited, someone that's actually ecstatic about actually being here because they already are invested into the company as far as just shopping there, knowing a little bit about it. So always do your research. It's very important. Second of all, there's some interviews like in GameStop, for instance, some interview, like when I did my interview with GameStop, we did it in a group session. And so it was like 4 or 5 people in the group, and they all pretty much did a whole circle interview. So everyone kind of had a turn, an opportunity to kind of speak their piece. So I really believe you really can't say the wrong thing to the right person. If a person can already have a chemistry or already have a vibe with you, as far as, seeing that there's someone that you're the type of person that they can potentially work with, then a lot of times out of 10, they're already going to consider you as a candidate. But it's all about you sharing, solution-based answers. So think about whatever company you're working for, like this instance, like GameStop. Think about how you can share about your experiences, about how you love people, how you love to talk to people, how you love getting involved in answering questions and solving people's problems. If you can say things like that, that's automatically a green flag in any employer, because of the fact is they're looking at solutions. When they're hiring you or looking at someone as a potential candidate, that's absolutely the most number one important priority, is how can they solve the problem to make my job easier as an employer thinking, right? So that's what you want to think about in terms of when you're doing your interview. So the standout is always kind of be the first person to try to be the first person to speak. And even if you're a little bit shy, I know for myself, I can be a little bit shy, standoffish at times, But I think from when I did when the interview, I always, again, try to give the solution as far as, sharing different stories of how I was able to work in a group setting and how I was able to solve a problem in a conflict based off giving solutions in a situation. So those are like trick questions like you would get in an interview. Is like, what type of scenario and how you would handle this situation given if it was you in this situation? Like, say for instance, gossip, right? Because that's something that's predominantly a big thing in a working environment is gossip. So if you hear an employer saying things like, how would you handle confrontation with another employer or another coworker, right? The first thing you're going to always tell them is that, hey, if I have a conflict with another employee, the first thing I'm going to do is bring it up to management. And the reason why you always want to do that is because the fact is, at the end of the day, it always gives them the confidentiality that you're handling things a professional manner. If you can pretty much go to the person and talk to them without having to do so, by all means do so, but always try to find the best solution by simply saying, hey, if I have a conflict with another employer or another employee or employer, then I'm going to go directly to that person and try to have another bystander to be notified that this is what's going on and try to resolve conflict by having a discussion about it with another person on standby. So it's not based on your word or the other employee word. There's someone else as a mediator to be able to help resolve the situation. Does that make sense? So these are golden tips, things like that you typically are going to be asked in any interview situation. So you always want to, find a way to be able to take the path of least resistance as far as trying to, take upon yourself, but always try to leverage authority to be able to help resolve conflict. If it's an answer that you don't know, you'll say, okay, if an employer asks you the question, okay, if you don't know the answer to something, how would you resolve it? By simply helping the person, even if you don't know the answer. You always say, hey, I don't know the answer, but let me go get someone who does so we can make sure that you get the best experience for the question that you're actually asking for. And this is something that you typically want to, offer in an interview or even just in customer service, because at the end of the day, if the customer knows that you don't know what you're talking about, it pretty much, deters confidence in them with you. And then it also deters the confidence and the ability of you being able to resolve their problem. And a lot of times it leaves a bad impression as overall for the company. So if you're someone that don't know all the answers, then be okay with that. Hey, I don't know the answers, but I'm willing to learn. And that's really good because people understand that, we're not perfect. Everybody does not know everything. But if you can be willing to be able to know the answer by simply doing your due diligence to figure it out, or going to an authority figure that actually have been more experienced in that area, then you can be able to leverage that and be able to give that to your customer and be able to project that to your employer, that you're someone that's willing to be swiftly and learning and being able to actually adapt and being able to provide the best solution to the customer as possible, even if you don't know it. And I think that's a good way to be transparent, even if you don't have experience. I think a lot of times we build a lot of insecurity within ourselves, thinking that we have to say the right things, in order to impress our employer. But even if you do that for such a time, they'll eventually figure you out if you don't perform. So be okay with just acknowledging that the fact, hey, I don't know everything, but I'm willing to learn and adapt. And I'm so excited about this opportunity because of the fact I have such an invested interest. I'm willing to grow and do whatever it takes to be the top performer in this environment and willing to make your job easier. When you say things like that, my job is to make your job easier, it's so attractive in so many ways that employers are like, oh, you're a fresh of breath air, because they realize, like, a lot of times as an employer or someone who's an authoritative figure, they're dealing with a lot of stress, a lot of headache, and just a lot of bad employees altogether, just because a lot of people don't always take the initiative to go the extra mile. But because you're someone that's taking the extra mile, because you're taking the time to watch this video, you're going to be the person that's going to do well in your interview. So I just wanted to do this quick segment. If you like this video and you want to hear more about, different interview tips, then make sure to like and subscribe to the video. Tell me in the comments what you think about this so far. I just want to do something very short and quick because the fact is so many people have been asking me about this as far as how to interview well and how to get over the anxiety with having to, deal with, interviewing and, getting the job and things like that. So if you want to learn more tips and stuff like that about how to interview well, make sure to check out my other videos and just tell me in the comments what you're thinking about that. Because like I said, I'm still a new channel as of the time of this video, but I definitely want to give you guys stuff that you're actually going to watch and actually get value from. So again, thank you for watching. My name is Aquarius. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.